The first one I'm gonna start with, and I think this one gonna be funny, but I think it says, if you meet three jerks before noon, you are the jerk. What story pops in mind when you hear that thought?
The story that pops into mind is I feel the whole world is a mirror for ourselves. If I'm meeting several people that are all appearing to be as jerks, and that's showing me how I'm presenting myself. And I need to check myself like, okay, what am I doing? How am I attracting this into my life? What am I doing with my energy? So I feel like that I get really introspective and I look at those things as signs too, especially like if it's traffic, like, all right, like this person got angry with me as I was driving and then this happened that was negative and then this happened that was negative. I'm like, okay, what's my internal state right now? Because I don't think of it as like the world's out to get me as much as I'm in control of my world, right? And so when I start seeing all these patterns start showing up, I look at it as a way to really look into myself and maybe even integrate certain things about myself of like, okay, well, where's my energy at right now? How can I start making some shifts? And usually that also starts reflecting a new reality in front of me. If I start showing up with more gratitude, maybe I have a new experience to be grateful for. Or if I'm coming at the world with anger, I'm probably going to meet a jerk.
And it says, do not compare your inside to someone else's outside. Oh, what comes to mind when you hear that as well?
When I think of like my inside, I think about my internal state, like what I'm thinking about, my mood, maybe my energy levels. And then I guess what I'm seeing here is when I compare that to someone else's outside, I have no idea what their internal state is. So I'm just seeing how they're presenting. That's probably the gap right there of I'm comparing my internal to someone else's presented state, which could be vastly different than how they feel inside.
Because it's happened a lot like social media, right? Because oftentimes people post like their happiest moments, their best self. You might think they're having a great life, but then behind the scene, they're in chaos, they're in turmoil, they just have all this. But people present certain things and you're like, well, my life sucked because they're having a great time, not realizing what their inside is like, right?
I think that also, but I'm noticing, and maybe it's just because I'm like in my late 30s now, but I'm noticing a lot of that, the social media, like what's presented and what's happening behind the scenes, also comes down to having more discernment and more trust in what you do put out there in the world. Because I find myself doing the same thing where if I'm carrying a whole lot, I don't necessarily want to put that out in front of the world. I don't really see how like that would be beneficial to me or to the life I'm creating. So I guess I could see it both ways where someone's like posting their highlight reel, but even if they are, it would be, if you are really close to them, it would be good to check in on what's happening behind the scenes because chances are, like you said, they are carrying a lot, but maybe for whatever reason they don't want to post it because they want to appear a certain way, or maybe they just don't feel like they can share the hardships in a public forum. And so I feel like that could also be, just depending on who it is, like an invitation to like, I know you're posting all this stuff, just also want to see if there's, how are you doing? I feel like just like, how are you doing could be an opening question for a lot. I feel like most people post their highlights. But that's only 50% of our lives.
I think a lot of us, we have the capabilities to narrate happiness, but to be a great narrator of unhappiness, a lot of people don't have the skill for. That's why one of the reasons I love Toastmasters, because you get to practice. How do you tell the story about the thing that's might be traumatizing, might be fearful, might be scary? How do you tell that as a story? Because that thing is like a big boulder, right? And oftentimes you have to get the skills to turn that into a pebble for somebody to carry. And we are afraid of sharing the heavy stuff because we don't know to transform it in storytelling language. So then people like, I'm only going to share my highlight reel because if I'm trying to share the heavy stuff, it's just going to be messy and I don't know how to control the mess. And then would you want to dump your mess on somebody else? But if you're artistic with how you tell a story, like this happened to me today. Guess what happened to me today?